Hey everyone, Jamon Moore and Alex Morgan here with you. Hopefully Robert Jonas will be able to join us shortly. We are live from PayPal Park where the Earthquakes just dropped a difficult one, 1-0 to the visiting Seattle Sounders. Let's bring Alex in here. Alex, how did you see the game tonight? It felt like quite a bit like one of those 0-0 draws that we saw these two teams have two of last season. But there was a bit of magic in there for Roldan, and then more magic for a different Roldan at the end of the game. How did you see it going?
That was a crazy ending there when Alex Roldan had to step in goal because Stefan Fry got injured. And, best wishes to him because he is, probably the best goalkeeper in Major League Soccer. He made a really outstanding save in the first half. And so he's really key for Seattle. But nonetheless, Seattle were able to hold on to the win. And, that's just because they're so good at game management. They score a really early goal and never looked like they lost control of that game, really. In the field, they down Yueill at the back. They had Cade Cowell on lock. I just thought it was a fantastic all-around performance from them. And Brian Schmetzer, all credit to him because Matias Almeyda likes to make these games hectic. He likes to make these games wild and open in the middle because that's when the Quakes succeed. But Schmetzer didn't let him do that at all. Seattle really clamped down control on this game and showed why they are currently top of the Major League Soccer standings. But on the other hand, I think the Quakes kept themselves in the game and I think that there was a solid performance, and by no means were they getting blown out like they did 7-1 last year. So I wouldn't lose too much confidence in this team if I were Matias Almeyda. I think it just goes to show how strong Seattle are.
Yeah, they rolled out, and people had called it a 3-5-2, but really it more looked like a 3-4-3 tonight. They had three up top with Rui Diaz in the middle. And what they did is they really kind of spread the Quakes out in a way where they were almost like man-marked out. And there was really no place for them to move the ball through the middle of the pitch. Every time they tried to, there was always a man following him. It was almost like they took a playbook from the Quakes and used some of the Quakes man marking against them at times. The press was really effective at just taking out the right players in the right times. The Quakes tried some new things in the second half, tried to get the ball up to Cowell on the sidelines, but it didn't work out all that well because of the change that Seattle had made at halftime to put Yueill on him. It seemed like they were able to match each other almost stride for stride, physical with each other. Yueill's just a beast by himself. Cade Cowell's a beast, and the two of them going up against each other. I'm not quite sure how it showed on the TV, but live, it was a very interesting thing to watch. What did you see in the second half there, Alex?
Well, I'll just start with Yueill because it was immediately obvious that he had Tommy Thompson beat down the left wing every time. I forgot, honestly, how strong and fast that Yueill is. He did the same thing when Seattle came to, it was then Earthquake Stadium, now PayPal Park, last year. He did the same thing. He just beat Tommy Thompson every time with his pace. And, that's what he did this time. I think I tweeted 2 minutes into the game, I'm not excited about this Tommy Thompson-Yueill matchup. And sure enough, it was Yueill bombing down that left wing, beating Tommy to set up that first goal. And, that was the goal that mattered. That was the game-winning goal. I would say for the rest of Seattle, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it was just a really effective press in that they were shutting down the right players at the right time. They weren't like swarming the Quakes at the back. But they had a really high front line. They had a high front line, and then their back line was dropping deep. So they were leaving a lot of space in the middle, mostly around Trophies. They were basically saying, okay, we're going to force Trophies to make some plays here. We're going to give Trophies some space and see what he can do. And he did make a play. He earned that penalty that was later called back by VAR. But otherwise, I don't think he was able to get involved as much as I would have liked to have seen. And so I just think that was a good bet by Seattle. And it's really amazing how much Brian Schmetzer can customize those tactics to fit each team. I mean, it's just a really incredibly functional, well-rounded team. And that's just what makes them so good.
Yeah, given how the game had gone and everything, I was actually kind of happy to see Andy Rios on, because I felt like the Quakes needed more physicality in the middle to win some of those balls. Not to say that Rios really kind of stood out and had an excellent game. He certainly missed some opportunities that or didn't take advantage of some opportunities. But it felt like if the Quakes were going to find a breakthrough, they were going to need to get a little bit more out of that particular position. It always felt Trophies was defensively behind the play. Seattle was doing different things where they were doing a good job kind of taking a Quakes man mark and getting them behind them, and then they would break forward. And the man mark was always grabbing jerseys, trying to do something. And it happened multiple times in the first half. Quite often the marker was going in too aggressively into a tackle. And when they missed, it was on for Seattle to be able to transition. And that's a team that you don't really want to let transition. Hang on with us. Tonight, we're going to have Matias Almeyda, and we believe it's just going to be one player, potentially Jackson Yueill. We're waiting for an update right now from Quakes PR to see who it will be. As soon as we hear Matias or a player step to the podium, we will break off to that. Alex, things got a bit interesting at the end. A field player in goal. Don't see that very often. My son was in the stadium tonight, and he's a player who has played both as a keeper and as a field player back and forth throughout his club soccer career. And he said he believes that Alex Roldan was probably a goalkeeper up until the point he realized he was going to be 5'7" and decided that he needed to switch to field. What did you think when you noticed that they were going to have to put Alex Roldan in goal there?
I mean, there was just a moment of confusion that happens whenever you have to sub an outfield player in goal. It was like, okay, we need to get a goalkeeper jersey for Roldan. They eventually found one, and then he was about to run to the goal to get in place. And then he goes, oh, wait a minute, I need gloves. So they had to run back and get a pair of, I think he borrowed some from Seattle's backup keeper. But honestly, he made a really good save. I mean, he was put under fire really quickly because the Quakes had a free kick, and they launched it into the box. They curled it into the box, and he made a pretty good save. And he put his body on the line too, because he kind of got decked by Jackson Yueill in that play. And then later he also had to deal with another cross. I think I'm a little disappointed that the Quakes weren't able to put a shot on goal, because I think if you put a real strike on target, then you could make something happen there. But credit goes to Roldan for evidently knowing how to play in goal.
Now the fans are a bit mixed on this, and it's never a good thing when a referee becomes the story. But Quakes fans really can't help but every time they see Baldomero Toledo in the middle of the pitch as the referee for the match, like somehow he's just a magnet for attention. First there was the handball call, and then we saw VAR overturn that. Shades of a game a few years back against, I think it was Atlanta United, if I remember right. But there was a game where he overturned two VAR calls. Both went against the Quakes a couple years ago. And I remember we had to put questions into him after the match to ask why those things were changed. And the Quakes fans always just feel like he's never going to give them, they're always going to get the short end of the stick when it comes to his calls. Maybe a little bit of controversy at the very end. Seemed like there should have been some additional time because of the Fry injury. There was 4 minutes that were added on. The Fry injury took probably at least an additional 4 minutes. It didn't really feel like there was at least 8 minutes there at the end. It seemed like it got cut off a little quickly. What do you think when we get? I mean, the fans want us to talk about it, so we're going to talk about it. What did you think of Toledo tonight?
Meh, I don't really have any strong feelings either way. I mean, he has royally screwed the Quakes in the past. I remember, I think it was 2-3 years ago, he gave the Quakes like 2 red cards, and they were down to 9 men against Toronto FC, I think, and they actually came back to either tie or win that game. They got a result. But I mean, I agree with some of these comments here. I'm seeing Daniel here saying, I hate Toledo as much as the next fan, but this was far from his worst performance. Lance says, I don't think that he was that bad that night, but he loves the attention. He lives for the attention. I agree. I don't think he is one of Major League Soccer's best referees. He screwed the Quakes in the past, but I don't really have a problem with him tonight. If anything, I think he did a good job in the second half. Seattle were making, I think, a lot of little fouls, late fouls, and to some extent the Quakes were too, but he was letting play run, and I think that was a good thing for the Quakes because it allowed them to keep the momentum going. I actually remarked that to you in the second half. So I don't think that you can point to Toledo tonight and assign him any blame for this defeat for the Quakes. I mean, if you look at that VAR call, we were talking in the Slack channel we have at Quakes Epicenter for all of our patrons, and Colin and I said that there's no way that was a penalty, and he's sort of our in-house refereeing expert, and so if that's what he says, I'll trust his call. I think it was a perfectly adequate refereeing performance tonight, and I just and that's why the Quakes weren't able to get a result.
All right, well, let's move on from the officiating. Certainly, there are other things to talk about here. I think you need to put me on mute there.
Thank you.
There you go. Now you're not hearing an echo. So, JT Marcinkowski, I think like sometimes there's some questions about the decision making that he's been making more recently. Some of his passing has not been as sharp tonight, or has not been as sharp this season. How do you feel that he did tonight? He didn't have a ton to manage. Most of the Seattle shots actually went wide or over the bar tonight. They missed, I believe it was 10 shots last I had checked, unless they added one at the end there. How did you feel like he managed the box tonight? I mean, when you think about it, the Quakes did give up one goal, but that goal was, obviously a good strike from Ruidíaz. I don't think there's anything Marcinkowski could have done about it. Overall, it felt like the Quakes played them pretty even on the night, and they did okay on the defensive end, cleaning up most of the dangerous situations. But what did you see?
I mean, JT's distribution has just been a little off this season, and that's slightly concerning given that was one of his strongest attributes last year. Generally is one of his strongest attributes for the U.S. Olympic team as well. I mean, you could say that he might have been able to claim the cross that I think eventually set up the goal for Seattle. Might have been able to do that. I think his aerial presence has been a little weaker this season as well. I don't think it has really cost the Quakes a ton yet, so I'm not incredibly concerned. But it is a little off-putting that he seems to have a little less confidence and a little less composure than he did last year. And I mean, I think it's a good thing in terms of his distribution that he's always looking to play forward, and that pays off most of the time. He's looking to launch quick counterattacks and looking to play with his feet. And Matias Almeyda is telling him to keep taking those risks and to keep playing that style and playing that way. It's just been a little off so far, and that's a little disappointing. I do want to talk here about one of the comments that Lance says that we need to see Yueill, Remedi, and Judson in the midfield. Chofis needs to hit the bench. I mentioned it earlier. I think, Chofis was a little quiet in that game. I think that there are lots of midfield combinations that the Quakes could choose now that Remedi is playing so well, and hopefully Judson is fully fit again soon. I would say my one thought is that I was a little concerned how quiet Jackson Yueill was. I think that he had a really strong game against DC United when he hit those 2 goals, and he had a really strong attacking performance and was getting forward. But otherwise this year, he's kind of been pretty quiet. He hasn't really been controlling the game and playing as many passes as he did last year. It's not really the Jackson Yueill that was kind of dominating in Olympic qualifying. He's just been a little quiet, and maybe it's the partnership with Eric Remedi in the middle. Maybe they just haven't fully figured each other's movement out yet. Certainly, I think that Remedi is more willing to take on players himself and to drive the ball forward himself, and I think that's really a good thing for the Quakes. One of their biggest chances in this match was when he made a run into the box and cut the ball back for Cade Cowell. But on the other hand, that means that Jackson Yueill is seeing less of the ball, because when Jackson Yueill played alongside Judson was just funneling the ball to him. Everything was going through Yueill in the middle, and he was that creator in there. And so I just think that he hasn't really figured out the right combination with Remedi yet. And I'm curious how a Remedi-Judson midfield would look like. I'm curious about lots of these combinations. But right now, we're going to go to the press conference, I think, with Matias Almeyda.
Jamon Moore.
Hi, Coach. Thank you for taking the time tonight. I'm sure you're disappointed with the loss, but it did feel like a bit of a battle tonight, a physical match in many ways. Seattle obviously has a tough defense. How did the match go from your perspective this evening?
Es obviamente una derrota, puede ser que estés decepcionado. Se sintió que fue como una batalla, un partido duro. Obviamente, Seattle tiene una defensa muy dura. ¿Cómo te sentiste el partido en tu perspectiva?
Ante todo, buenas noches.
Firstly, good evening.
Muy contento.
I'm really happy.
Estoy muy feliz
I'm really happy
porque el equipo jugó ante el mejor rival que tiene esta liga
because the team was up against the best team in the league.
y futbolísticamente mostró cosas importantes.
And in terms of football, they showed important things.
No puedo detenerme solo en el resultado cuando el rival pateó una vez al arco.
I can't just take away the result when the opposition only got one shot on goal.
Y sí me detengo en la cantidad de acciones que creamos
I take away the amount of chances we created
contra un equipo que es excelente,
against an excellent team,
contra una defensa que es muy buena,
against a really good defense.
pero que tuvimos las posibilidades y esta vez no pudimos concretarlas, pero las tuvimos.
And we had our chances. This time we weren't able to put them away, but we had our chances.
Creo que nos hubiese gustado al menos empatar, lo que creo que era justo.
I think we would have liked to at least tie the game, which might have been fair.
Pero me quiero detener en lo que produjo el equipo.
But I'll take away what the team has produced.
Los primeros 25 minutos fueron medio de ida y vuelta.
The first 25 minutes were kind of back and forth.
Y después empezamos a mejorar y creo que por momentos hicimos muy bien las cosas.
Then we started to improve, and for moments we did things really well.
Thank you, Matias. Next question from Alicia Rodriguez.
Thank you. Matias, it seemed like the attack, you guys had a lot of the ball, and you were able to get a fair number of shots off, but just didn't seem like you had, quite the clinical look. How would you assess the chances and the shots that the team took on the night?
Dice que el ataque tuvo la pelota mucho y tuvo sus oportunidades, solamente no tuvieron la definición. ¿Qué puede decir sobre eso, de la cantidad de oportunidades que intentó el equipo?
Bueno, por eso digo que me dejó contento.
That's why I say that I'm happy.
Quedo feliz por lo que produjo el equipo en la búsqueda de ir por un empate, inclusive si lo empatamos, por un triunfo.
I'm happy with what the team produced and looking for the tie, and if we tied even, we were looking for the win.
Pero el fútbol es así, muchas veces propones, llegás y por X motivo no se convierte.
But that's the way football is. You create, you get there, you impose, but for whatever reason, you can't put it away.
Y cuando jugás contra un rival de esta jerarquía,
And when you're up against an opponent of this pedigree,
le bastó solo con un tiro al arco para concretar un golazo hicieron.
just one shot to goal was all they needed to score a great goal.
pero remarco el camino que intentamos en empatar el partido, esa búsqueda de la intensidad, de desbordar por los costados, la movilidad, la presión, creo que se vieron cosas buenas.
But I highlight the path that we had to look for our chances, getting by on the flanks, getting our chances. So I think the search was good.
Thank you, Matias. Next question from Alex Morgan.
Unmuted.
Hi, Matias. Condolences on the loss, but it's good to see you and good to speak with you. Can you talk about in the midfield, Eric Remedi and Jackson Yueill, and how their partnership is developing? What you saw from them tonight, and what you'd like to see more of from them going forward. What you think they can improve, and then maybe about Judson's fitness as well. If you think he could appear in the middle again soon.
Muted.
Me quiere preguntar sobre el medio de Eric y Jackson, cómo ve que juegan juntos, en qué pueden mejorar y qué ves que ya hacen bien o mal. Y también te quiere preguntar sobre el estado físico de Judson.
Sí, la primera creo que está funcionando muy bien esa dupla,
For the first question, I think that duo is working really well
donde recuperan y juegan,
when they recover and play,
donde hacen relevos,
where they cover for
donde
each other,
son grandes intérpretes de leer el juego
when they're great interpreters of reading the game,
y donde le están dando precisión a la fase ofensiva también.
and they're adding accuracy to the offensive phase as well.
Creo que en los partidos que hemos jugado se ha visto que sobresalen los dos.
I think in the games we've played, you can see that they both stand out,
Y es muy difícil mantener ese nivel tanto tiempo.
and it's really hard to maintain that level of time.
Está recuperándose de tanto tiempo que no estuvo con nosotros.
Judson is still recovering from the long time he spent away from us.
De a poquito se va poniendo cada vez mejor físicamente.
Little by little, he's getting better and better physically.
Y bueno, el día que esté bien físicamente, entra en la competencia con ellos dos.
And the day that he's fit, he's going to start to compete against them too.
También Judson me está gustando mucho como central,
I'm also really liking Judson a lot as a center back
porque me aportaría muchas cosas.
because he could give us many things.
Así que bueno, estamos en esa búsqueda de que él pueda sentirse de la mejor manera posible.
So we're still in the search for him to feel as best as he can.
Thank you, Matias. Before we switch over to Spanish, we're going to take a couple more in English specific to Saturday's game against Portland, starting with Jamon Moore.
Hi, Coach. Thank you for letting me ask another question about Portland. You may not have had a chance to analyze them too much so far. They're off to a tough start to the season, normally a very tough team. What do you tell your players at this point in the season in such a tight schedule? Physically, how do you get prepared for turnaround quickly for an opponent like Portland? Thank you.
La pregunta sobre el partido de Portland dice que tal vez no tuviste la oportunidad de analizarlo en profundidad todavía. Portland tuvo un arranque difícil, pero Portland siempre es un equipo duro. ¿Qué le decís a los jugadores en un momento así cuando tienen que recuperarse rápidos, con pocos días entre partidos contra dos equipos difíciles?
Bueno, evidentemente tenemos que analizarlo bien a Portland.
Evidently, we have to analyze Portland well.
Para nosotros, no solamente Portland, Seattle, son todos los rivales difíciles.
For us, not just Portland, Seattle, every opponent is difficult.
Los respetamos a todos, pero sabemos que tenemos que estar muy bien para competir en contra de cualquiera.
We respect everyone, but we know we have to be doing very well to compete against anybody.
Analizaremos a Portland y después analizaremos quién está recuperado de este partido.
We'll analyze Portland, and we're also going to have to analyze who has recovered from this game.
Y si es la ocasión de cambiar en algunas posiciones para renovar energías.
And see if it's time to make some changes to renew energy.
Thank you, Matias. One more specific about Portland from Alicia Rodriguez.
Thank you. Your last answer kind of answered part of my question, but I guess specifically, do you expect that Osvaldo Alanis will be in contention to play on Saturday, or is that something that he's not ready yet, or it's a decision you'll have to make closer to the game?
También en relación con el partido de Portland, si si se sabe si Aranis podría estar para jugar ese partido o si tendría que seguir esperando un par de días más para ver si podría jugar.
Bueno, hoy estuvo el partido y realmente no pensamos en eso, y a partir de mañana comenzaremos a analizar posición por posición, hablando con los jugadores, a ver quién tiene esta energía para mantener esta dinámica que estamos teniendo, y obviamente entrará también Osvaldo en esa consideración.
Today, obviously, he wasn't in the game, but after this game, we have to look at position by position and see who can play, who has the energy to keep playing, and obviously, Osvaldo is going to be within that contention.
Thank you, Matias. We'll switch over to Spanish now and start with John Rojas.
Thanks, Jake. Matías, gracias por el tiempo.
Por favor.
Cuando en el marcador hay un partido como este, en el que el rival se le defiende más de media hora, en el que ustedes tienen 6 remates a puertas contra 1 y todo lo que ya usted mencionó, a los muchachos se les dice, aquí no se ha perdido nada, se ganó un montón por todo el proceso, teniendo ese peso específico del rival enfrente y lo bien que se hizo.
Sí, se les remarca lo bueno, pero también hay detalles que les he remarcado cuando terminó el partido. Hay un detallito que tenemos que mejorar. Pero en líneas generales me gustó porque el equipo jugó bien realmente. El equipo, sobre todo por la importancia que tiene Seattle en esta liga, en sus inversiones, en su entrenador, la manera en la cual lo hace jugar, en las características individuales y colectivas que tiene Seattle. Y entonces analizo desde ese lugar. Creo que no es fácil jugarle. De hecho, le han ganado a todos, a nosotros también. Y siempre es un equipo que hace 5 o 6 años, ¿no? Que es protagonista constantemente. Entonces, no minimizo contra quién jugamos. Entonces, desde ahí creo que hicimos muchas cosas buenas. Que manteniendo eso, seremos competitivos contra cualquiera.
Thank you, Matias. We're going to take 2 more questions, starting with Carlos Ramirez.
Matías, ¿cómo te va? Buenas noches, un abrazo.
Buenas noches, Carlos.
Profe, ¿cómo evalúas el partido de Tanner Bison, entendiendo que es un central de apenas 12 partidos en MLS y que le tocó pelear con todo un tipo como Raúl Ruiz Díaz, que tiene eliminatorias, Copa América, mundiales encima, y luego contra Freddy Montero, y a los dos, más allá de que es un trabajo colectivo, este muchacho que tiene esos 12 partidos se vio tan fluido, tan natural? ¿Cómo lo viste hoy y cómo es el crecimiento de Tanner?
Bueno, el fiel reflejo de lo que somos nosotros como club, como San José. Nosotros tenemos muchos jóvenes que el día que tengan 50 partidos, entonces se van a convertir en jugadores importantes, pero es un proceso lento el nuestro. Por eso que remarco la importancia de haber jugado de la manera en la cual lo hicimos, más allá del resultado, y que lo nuestro con más tiempo, la verdad. Si bien queremos ganar todo lo que viene, pero hay que ser conscientes de muchas cosas. Por ejemplo, no apresurarlo a los chicos, protegerlos desde las redes sociales hasta en los entrenamientos, y creo que van por buen camino. Van por buen camino y tienen que seguir corrigiendo cosas, tienen que mejorar muchas de ellas, y tienen que reforzar también las buenas que tienen, para darse cuenta que pueden.
Thank you, Matias. One final question from Fabian Renkel.
Hola, Matías, gracias por tu tiempo hoy. Buenas noches.
Por favor, buenas noches.
¿Cómo se siente Marcos López? Salió del partido lesionado. ¿Cómo se siente ahora? Gracias.
No, Marcos creo que salió con un calambre. Y bueno, creo que no es nada. Y mañana, una vez que descansen y todo, mañana se va a ver bien si sufrió algún tipo de lesión o solamente fue el cansancio muscular.
All right. Thank you very much, Matias and Augustine.
Thank you.
So that was Matias Almeyda's post-match press conference. We'll be speaking with Jackson Yueill next, so stick around for that. And I'm going to add Jamon Moore back on right now for his take. And I think we're going to be introducing another special guest joining us right now, Jamon.
Yeah, I believe we have Robert Jonas joining us. So why don't we go ahead and bring him in. Robert, thank you for taking the time. I know you're a busy man these days. Did you get a chance to listen into Matias's press conference there?
I only caught the tail end there, so unfortunately missed the bulk of the questions. But yeah, it was. I'm sure he was. I'm sure he's disappointed with the result, but the details, I'm sure, is something he's going to have to work out with his coaching staff. So I'll say I'm disappointed in the result. Not exactly the kind of Quakes team we saw play on the weekend on Friday, and just didn't really have it for stretches of the game, and it just seemed reminiscent of a midweek game with just that level of lethargy that you sometimes expect on a Wednesday night.
So, go ahead, Alex.
I was just going to say, I think that's a good take, Robert. And, I think Matias, one of the things that he did say in that post-match press conference that caught my ear was that he's going to look at some changes heading into this weekend to see if he can bring back some energy into that lineup, because it did look a little lethargic, as you say, today. He's going to look at some changes. So, that could mean bringing on a Paul Murray for Tommy Thompson at right back and, adding some pace and energy there. It could mean bringing on Andy Rios in the front line and mixing it up there, taking out Chofis. So there are lots of different options that he has in there. And I'm curious, Robert, if any of those players particularly stood out to you tonight, what your takeaway, how you thought Seattle were able to break down the Quakes.
Well, I think that there just seems to be no secret of the way Seattle is open this season. They're not trying to outpossess teams. I don't think that was really their MO at times last season. And this is a MLS Cup runner-up here. This isn't a kind of a mid-table team at all. So they know how to play disciplined defense. They know how to get guys behind the ball, and it felt like they were the ones that were making the better decisions when it was time to press, or when it was time to sort of back off and let the Quakes kind of bat the ball around for a while. And to me, that's the sign of a better team that knows when to make those decisions in those moments. And perhaps you could very much so a well-coached team at that. And so the people need to remember, it might have been a first versus second place in the standings as of this morning, but not necessarily two teams have been battling it out year after year. So this is 14 games in a row that the Quakes have failed to find a win against Seattle, dating back many seasons. And it seemed like some of those same issues, those same disparities in the team style and the team dynamics, were on display tonight.
One of the things Matias said that he actually liked a lot about the game was the fact that there was only one shot on target that they had given up. So from that perspective, he was pleased that, because he felt that they had a lot more opportunities, they were a lot more dangerous, really only the one shot against tonight. From Seattle. One of the things that we were noting a little bit earlier in the show was basically how Seattle did a good job kind of pressing them, pushing people out to the ends, man-marking them in some ways during the press situations, making it very difficult for the Quakes to be able to play through the middle. And anytime that they seemed to get the ball in the middle, things got very physical. There were a lot of fouls that were called in the middle of the pitch tonight. What did you see from your angle?
Yeah, it was exactly that. Seattle knew that if they controlled that center, that things would probably go their way. One thing that in watching at times, the Quakes had their opportunities, maybe found some spaces where when they were able to get that ball transition from one side to the other, when they got Jackson Yueill behind the ball and spraying one of those, sideline to sideline passes, did seem to catch Seattle having to regroup and having to refresh. But, the Quakes weren't finding enough of those opportunities or taking maybe advantage of, the chances they did have to really stretch the field quickly and try to create some imbalance in the Seattle defense, because they were so huddled in that center of the field. They were able to make the modifications when the ball was moving more slowly. So when you saw 2 touches or 3 touches from a Quake instead of a quick pass, even a quick diagonal, a quick triangle pass backwards to get an opening channel, none of that was really happening fast enough, and that just allowed Seattle to comfortably get into position at times, and just keep the Quakes from really getting into that attacking third in a way where they had spaces to make decisions, to really kind of press issues and take the kinds of shots that were going to give Stephen Fry trouble. So they might have limited the Sounders to just a shot on goal. I think if Raul Diaz played a better game, he probably could have had a goal or two tonight. Rui Diaz, sorry. So that was somewhere where the Quakes caught a break. But Seattle played disciplined enough that Quakes could never get the ball rotated around fast enough to take advantage.
And Robert, you mentioned a little bit of the history there of this fixture, and Brian has a insightful comment here in the comments. He says the last win against Seattle was in June 2015. The last goal the Quakes scored against Seattle was all the way back at home, at least, was all the way back in April 2017. So yeah, historically Seattle have had the Quakes number. And I just think that speaks to the way that Brian Schmetzer has this team playing. And then tonight, I think one of the reasons that they're able to shut down the Quakes so well is that they just totally mitigated the risk of Cade Cowell. They didn't give him space to run in behind. And then when you have guys like Nuhu marking him at the back, Nuhu I think has the pace to outpace Cade Cowell and the physicality to challenge him too. So does Andrade in the back line. So physically, I think they were able to keep up with him, and then they were just marking him really, really tightly. And so he did have one opportunity in the first half, and I actually thought that he had hit a good shot from Eric Remedi's cutback. But when you have Fry in goal, that's a huge addition for Seattle as well. So yeah, I just don't think Cowell had that many opportunities tonight, and I think that's one of the reasons why the Quakes struggled going forward.
Well, you had this is a veteran team, a veteran coaching staff, and we've seen Cal, and they've seen Cal now play for a few games to start the season. He's a physical player. He uses that physical, dynamic to his advantage at times. And I was watching the broadcast, and Danielle Slayton had a fantastic comment at some point in the second half where, it looked like Cade Cal could have gone down for a foul. It was deep in the attacking third. He kind of stayed on his feet. He withstood the pressure, withstood the push from the defender, but a wiser player, a more veteran player, knows to go down in that situation. Knows the gamesmanship is part of the process. You earn your team a free kick in a dangerous position, and that's still something. And she said this, that's something a young player can learn. He's going to get all sorts of tests in this season. If he's going to be the kind of the one of the faces of the Quakes, that's going to make other teams look out for him and look for ways to sort of throw him off his game. So as Cade takes those lumps, if you will, and learns from them, then his next phase of the development occurs. Tonight was not the night where he was able to sort of play that gamesmanship, but maybe in future games he learns when it's appropriate to take the foul.
Let's switch sides of the pitch here, and let's talk about one of Almeyda's comments about Judson. Clearly, I think the fans would like to see a bit more of Judson. Maybe tonight tactically wasn't the best opportunity to get him on the pitch and be able to try to get some more minutes. And he really hasn't been getting more than, I don't think, 20 minutes in any game so far this season. One of the things we heard Matias Almeyda say tonight is that he's considering him for a center back position when he returns. Most likely that would be Flo's position, because I think he's very happy with Beeson filling in for Alanis at the left center back. And Alanis is clearly, when he's healthy, the number one player for that position. So are we potentially looking at a competition now between Judson and Flo for that starting right center back position? What do you guys think of that?
I think it's perfectly reasonable that any coach wants his players battling in practice to be that starting center back, to be that starting forward, whatever the case might be. And I don't see Matias being any different in that way. This is a team that is not going to go out there and necessarily beat teams with talent. And so you need the best players of the week, playing in your starting 11. The guys that were really battling in practice, ready to come off the bench in the 18. And if you look at where the center back depth is right now on this team, it's
I think, my time here, the past 4 or 5 years, they've
I'll
been
hold my thought.
one of the most consistent teams in MLS, and they're a very good side for a reason because they have really good players and they have a system that they're all bought into. So for sure, they're a challenging team to play against, and you saw why tonight. I think we made them suffer a lot, and we pressed them hard, and they were able to win, and I do that against a lot of teams. I think this is a right step for us. I think regardless of the result, I think the effort was there. I think the attitude at the end and in the second half from the team was in the right direction. It's just about finishing our chances and coming out ready to play at the beginning of the games. I think we gave away the goal early on, and a little slow at the beginning, and I think that's something to still be improved on. But I think a lot of positives to take from this game, and a lot of season left to go for, and we'll get our chances again.
Thank you, Jackson. Next question from Alex Morgan.
Unmuted.
Hi, Jackson. Thanks for speaking with us tonight, and condolences on the loss. I'm curious how you feel like your partnership with Remedi is developing in the middle, and how you think he plays differently than Judson in there, and whether you see that changing your role at all when he's there.
Muted.
Yeah, I think Eric is a great addition to the team. He's very similar to myself and Judson, and in his mobility, his work rate, being on the ball, and his kind of aggression and kind of sacrifice for the team. He cares a lot about helping the guys around him. So I think those are all really, really good qualities. He's really able to get us out of situations when we're building up from behind. And he's always wanting the ball. He's always asking for the ball. So he's a guy to kind of relieve pressure from the rest of the team, especially myself. So I really enjoyed, getting to know him better. And I think his influence on the team has been really good. And so I think, the more that he gets into the game and, incorporate Judson, I think, we're really strong midfields who will be a hard combination no matter who's in there to play against.
Thank you, Jackson. Next question from Alicia Rodriguez.
Thank you. Jackson, you guys only conceded one shot on goal tonight, and unfortunately it happened to be the goal, and it was a pretty nice one. My question is, it seems like, the last couple of weeks you guys have only conceded like really amazing goals. Obviously, you scored a really great goal a few weeks ago. Is it a matter of the, the quality of the attacking is getting better, and you have to be really special to score at this point, because the defense is also getting better? Or is it just kind of a fluke thing that, obviously you're going to concede a few shots here and there, and sometimes they're just going to be amazing goals? Well, I'm curious about your thoughts on it.
Yeah, no discredit. I think Christian is a phenomenal player, and he scored a great goal with his left foot today. He's a dangerous guy, and I think as we move forward, and there's a lot of teams with dangerous guys who can score great goals, and those are their attributes. And I think we have guys on our team who can also score really good goals. And I think the quality of players, and just the defensive aspect of especially our team, and a lot of teams around, especially in the West and in this league, are challenging to score against. So it takes something special to score. So yeah, it was a great goal by him. I think our responsibilities, is to keep JT's life as easy as possible. And one shot is good, but they scored on it. So I think it's still something to improve in the quality of the shots that we give up, and minimizing, who's recognizing who's taking those shots and trying to limit those players, because there are players around the league who can hurt you with only one chance. But we keep moving forward, and hopefully we have a lot of guys who can do the same thing to other teams.
Thank you, Jackson. We're going to take 3 more questions, starting with Jamon Moore.
Hey, Jackson, good evening, and thank you for taking the time to join us. I'll ask a kind of a light question here. You don't get to see field players play keeper very often at all in this league. Obviously, no one wants to see Stefan Frei get hurt. Everyone would agree that he's a legend in this league. But when you see a field player like Alex Roldan going in goal, like what does that do for the guys? What is going through your mind when you see that? Is it like, we got an opportunity here, we need to take advantage of this? What is it that the players talk about when you see a field player go into that type of situation?
Yeah, I think the whole second half we tried to take an opportunity. I think we were really pressing them high. We were in their attack a lot, getting a lot of crosses in. I think we could have utilized that opportunity a little bit better and gotten some better shots. But I think we all recognize the situation. I mean, you saw Tanner at the end of the game trying to get into the box and trying to capitalize on that opportunity with one man down and a field player in goal. And I think we were close. Just kind of missed the ball a little bit at the end. But yeah, the guys are read the situation and know what's going on and try to push. We were trying to push the whole game, and it just kind of didn't happen for us. But I think, like you said, it's a step that we need to keep going and be more critical in and around the box.
Thank you. Next question from Carlos Ramirez.
Hi, Jackson. How much of an advantage or disadvantage is for you guys to face a team that didn't play midweek like Portland on next Saturday?
I think, I don't think it's either one. They're going to be a good team whether they play it or not. You saw it against Seattle today. I think even though they played Sunday, they were still a challenging team to play. And even though we just played today and played a game the other day, I think a lot of guys are used to kind of the tight schedule, and that you have to be up for every game no matter the opponent. So that we're going to face a tough team, and probably they're recovering from Champions League, and other guys are healthy and fit, and so we're going to have to come out with a lot of intensity and be 100% and start the game off really strong, because they're going to have a really strong team.
Thank you, Jackson. We're going to take one final question, also specific to Portland, from Alex Morgan.
Unmuted.
Hi, Jackson. What do you think you guys need to improve going into the Portland game, to get the win there? And, with only a couple days turnaround again, how do you make those? Do you have to adjust the game plan at all to take into account, some fatigue maybe?
Muted.
I think our game plan is really good right now. I think, of course, we'll have to see how the guys are doing tomorrow and how they're feeling, and kind of look at Portland's team and see what areas that we can try to exploit and their strengths that we can kind of bolster. But I think defensively, I think we're looking good and limiting a lot of opportunities for the teams that we play so far. And I think something to maybe improve on a little bit more is the quality of our chances, and kind of making that extra pass to get a goal. And I think trying to do that early on. I think when we come out strong and set the tone, I think it's a good start for the game. And so that's what we'll look to do this weekend, and we'll have a good game plan and try to execute it as best we can.
All right. Thank you very much, Jackson, and best of luck on Saturday.
Thank you.
Robert, you were listening in on that press conference. Did anything in particular stand out to you from what Jackson Yueill was saying there?
Yeah, I think what he was kind of finishing there was important. He's absolutely right that the Quakes can live and die by the chances they can create, and some of the guys just weren't on it tonight. Cristian Espinosa had opportunities, failed to pull the trigger a couple of times, and sort of got his shot got blocked out, or those little bit of hesitations, kind of just didn't go their way, and sometimes you need a few lucky breaks too. Not always when the ball doesn't always bounce your way, you're going to be kind of put in a difficult situation. One thing that did strike me, no, he didn't mention it there with quality chances, but the number of set pieces the Quakes had tonight, and just the lack of ingenuity and quality on any of them really to test the goalkeeper to really make a quality scoring chance was, I think, striking. And set pieces are something you can work on and you can develop over time. In the days when we would be out at training, you would have plenty of time every day where they were doing set piece practice, and that is seems like a place where there can be a bit of a short-term prep ahead of the next game against Portland. Try some things out. Doesn't take you can have heavy legs and still get out there and work on your set pieces, and maybe that's exactly what the Quakes need to get that one or two quality chances that Jackson's talking about.
Yeah, that's just one of those small details that I think kind of bugs me right now. It's frustrating to watch because the Quakes, I think they have the training ground routines and they have tried them. They're just not executing them well. And I'm seeing Michael here saying that we don't have height. We won't score any set piece until we have a strong, tall guy. And to some extent that is true, but also they are trying like short set piece routines. They had one in the first half that Matt Doyle from MLS tweeted. It was the 37th minute of, a Wednesday night game. They're down 1-0, but they're already sending up, 10, literally all 10 outfield players for the set piece. And yet they still didn't even manage to get the ball in the box. They had like a short set piece routine that they did, and they just kind of wasted the chance. So, it's those kind of wasteful, moments that are a little frustrating. But, at least in terms of set pieces, they are not shipping, 2-3 set piece goals a game at the back, which they have done in past years. So there's improvement on the defensive end, I think, going forward. Obviously they can still be better.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the chances tonight because, they did have 6 shots on goal, or at least that's what Opta's recording. They've actually been kind of changing the expected goals on the game because I think some of the things at the end got a little bit confusing for them. So as of right now, anyway, it's showing that the Earthquakes had about 1.5 expected goals according to Opta. Seattle had 1. Seattle had 17 shots to the Quakes 15. But they only had the 1 on target while the Quakes had the 6. And I would agree. I think it's been frustrating. One of the things that the team has not been able to do is score on a set piece this season. I believe all their goals have come from open play. Coming into the game, Seattle had only given up 1 goal in open play. Something was going to give, and unfortunately, it was the Quakes. They had an off night, from a finishing perspective. Kay Cowell's shot, in the first half, you mentioned the cutback, Alex, I think was really kind of the best chance of the night. It took a great save from Stefan Frei for that to not go in the net. And I think that's the type of thing that Matias and the team will walk away with and say, we had that opportunity. It took a great save. They might look at, some of the things that happened toward the end of the game there, a couple chances in the box and feel that, they could have done a little bit better here or there, and they would have gotten it. But I agree, they're going to need some different ways to put the ball in the back of the net. You can't always rely, on the open play goal. You have to be able to balance that with some set pieces. And whether that means that they need to go back to the training ground and get some new routines, or they need to, or because, teams have maybe seen a good bit of what the Quakes have, or what have you, they're going to need to find a way to get balls into the back of the net, at least until they get that kind of aerial presence that can both help them on the defensive side on set pieces, but potentially also provide them a bit more of that height, also. It's not all height. It's some of it is creativity. Some of it is keeping the other teams guessing, making different runs, different players in different spots at different times. And tonight there were a lot of corners, but they really didn't take advantage and create much danger from almost any of them.
And I will add that, one of the guys that improves their set pieces immensely, I think, is Roldan Alanis. He has an absolutely incredible left foot that can whip it in from basically anywhere in the final third. And so the fact that he is still injured is concerning for the Quakes. I think, his composure in the back line is important. And, to their credit, Florian Jungwirth and Tanner Beeson have really stepped it up. I think both of them had solid games tonight, even though the Quakes lost. With that said, I still think Alanis would slide right back into that starting role in the back line because of his composure and, because, importantly, those set pieces, as we're talking about, he can whip it in. He can also add an aerial presence in the air. And so 2 weeks ago, I think, against DC United or FC Dallas, he was sort of surprisingly pulled from the match day squad at the last minute. And we were told it was, precautionary and, wasn't very serious is the way it was made out to us. But this is, I think, the third match in a row that he has been totally absent from the match day squad, the match day 20. And so that's definitely concerning for the Quakes. And I think, might be, one of the reasons that they want to accelerate their search for DP center back over the summer, because both their center backs right now are old. Florian Jungwirth, is in his 30s. Osvaldo Alanis is in his 30s. If they're both susceptible to injuries like that, all the more reason to bring in a young DP center back who can take this team to the next level.
It'd be interesting to see what happens then, because if they're talking about bringing the center back in, but Matias is talking about turning Jutsen into a center back, that's a lot of center backs now, right? And it seems to me like we might be getting to the point where Yueill and or Remedi, could use a bit of a break. You're going to ask them to play 3 games in pretty short order here, and it's going to be a kind of a tough compressed stretch for the Quakes. He talked about injecting some new life. Seems like if he was fit, Jutsen would be one of those kind of people you'd like to see come in and inject some life. Robert, what would you potentially change in the starting lineup in order to inject that type of life into the team against Portland? Who's on the bench that we could see start, and who's starting that could use a bit of a break and maybe come in toward the end to inject some life into like the 70th minute?
Yeah, a player that we haven't talked about, but a player I was I think had a less than par experience tonight was Tommy Thompson, and I could definitely see him being on the bench to start the game against Portland. There were too many giveaways. Nuhu was beating him comfortably on the wing, and that was really keeping Seattle in the game, especially early, and giving them their opportunities to score their goal on just such a play. So giving him a break. I don't know. Maybe Abakasi starts out there. Paul Marie would be a great choice, given some of the experience he's had so far. It seems like that would be a good place to go. Eric Remedi has impressed at times. In fact, I feel the same way that maybe Matias is. Maybe he should be the center back at times. We saw him kind of slide back there and play kind of an emergency role and let Jutsen play more of a defensive back. I'd be happy with that in terms of getting some fresher players on the field. It's with the 5 substitutions that you have every game, you're kind of seeing all the players almost every game now. So it's not as if there's guys hidden on the bench that we're not seeing necessarily that are just waiting for their opportunity. Having said that, we know there's some young guys in that team that we haven't seen yet this season. Eric Cavillo and Saeed Haji and players that haven't played meaningful enough minutes to make an impression. Maybe they get their opportunity. A game against Portland, a home game is a safe game to be able to put those guys out there and see what they can do for you. And if they do well, you keep them out there. If they don't do well, you've got a lot of subs to work with, and you can make the changes as necessary.
Okay, fans, Jackson's going to be the last player for tonight, and we're going to wrap this up pretty quickly. Before we do, we'd like to remind you that to visit quakesepicenter.com. We're doing, I think, a great job so far this season, giving you fresh content before each game. Alex had a brand new article this week. I spoke with Harrison Crow from American Soccer Analysis. I'm going to speak to somebody from the Portland side ahead of the Portland game, so you can look forward. That video will be coming. As always, there will be a preview for our patrons, and then we will be releasing it to everybody. But if you want to get this content as it comes out, subscribe to our Patreon. $2 gets you going, gets you in for the new articles as they come out, as well as some of these videos that we're going to be producing, talking to people who are knowledgeable about the Quakes opponents. And then we have special content that is for our $5 and $15 patrons only. If you're interested in what we're offering as a Patreon, or why we even have a Patreon, visit quakesepicenter.com, click the Patreon link at the top, and read about it. One of the things that we can't recommend enough is the Slack. Having the patron Slack for our $5, $15 patrons is a lot of fun. Game day chat is absolutely crazy. Everyone's in there going nuts about Toledo tonight for, various reasons, because of course Quakes fans love him so much. But it's always a lot of fun. Hundreds of messages. I have a hard time keeping up, to be quite honest, trying to watch the game and pay attention to all the Slack. But it is a great time. If you're a $2 patron and you can afford it, upgrade to the $5. Ask for access to the Slack, and we'll get you in there so you can be there for the Portland game. And if you're somebody who's not a patron today, please consider it if you can afford it. And we'd love to have you on board. And Brian is new to the Slack and is saying Slack is awesome. Yes, absolutely. It is a lot of fun. Let me kick it over to you guys for some final thoughts. Matias Almeyda, Jackson Yueill both gave the impression that they felt positive, that only giving up one shot on goal, and that one had to be a banger in order to beat the Quakes tonight, is a step in the right direction for this team. Outshooting, at least of the shots on goal as well, felt like a positive for them. What say you guys? Alex, I'll start with you.
I think it was always going to be a tight game on the road. Seattle just play really tight games, and they do a really good job of controlling in the midfield, and that's what they did tonight. And I think the preserved a point between the chance that Kate Cowell had, the chance to feel tonight. But Seattle are just really, really good, and that's why they are at the top of the table. I would also like to plug the patron Slack, just because today we saw Marcelo, who has been in the comments here. Marcelo in the patron Slack let us know where he was in the stadium, and so we waved at him from the press box. He was wearing a nice San Jose Clash sweatshirt. So bring all your Quakes bling, and we'll give you a wave and a shout out and show us what you got. And yeah, I'm looking forward to being back here for another home game on Saturday. Hopefully a better result for the Quakes and a more entertaining match as well.
And we'll be announcing our crew, and obviously we will be carrying again the post-game press conference, and we will be here on the Aftershock with at least 3 or 4 of us to do a show for that. So plan that as a part of your evening. Robert, this is your first time getting to do a post-game with us this season. Thank you so much for being able to take the time. We love the scarf wall behind you. Give us your final thoughts on yet another Quakes loss to the Sounders. This one's got to hurt a little bit more, maybe, just because it was an opportunity to move to the top of the Supporters' Shield standings in the top of the West. And now the Quakes are going to need to pick up points against Portland in order to stay toward the top, of the conference. It feels, what do you see as being their keys for success against Portland?
Yeah, and just to kind of reiterate, Seattle's the kind of team you measure yourself against, and the Quakes have fallen short mightily, and the Quakes have fallen short barely, and tonight was one of those barelys. It was a good sign. So the positivity coming from the coach and from Jackson, speaks to the idea that they weren't completely outplayed. They had their moments, and like we said earlier, a few lucky bounces and it goes their way. I think that it's that kind of result. a loss like that where it leaves you hungry. If this team can rouse up the energy for the game against Portland, they're going to feel they deserved something tonight, and they're going to go out there and battle for those points against Portland. Portland's a team that's played a lot more games so far this season with their Champions League experience, and for better or for worse, it makes them a bit battle tested, but it also means that they're getting into some of those parts of the season where a niggling injury here or a bit of complacency there can kind of disrupt a game plan. So it's an opportunity for the Quakes to catch a Portland team that maybe because of the extra time didn't put in the full effort this week, or maybe they come out lethargic, having had as many days off as they've had, and the Quakes can ride that emotion. As we've seen with successful Quakes teams in the past, it's not really about talent that pushes them over the finish line. It's the passion that goes along with it. And so when they can bring that into the equation, that's when they can start playing and measuring up against these top teams in the West.
Okay, thank you. That's our show for this evening. Before we sign off, please, if you've not yet subscribed to the channel, do so. By the way, this is going to be for your benefit. If we can get to 1,000 subscribers on the channel, it'll give you some new features of things that you would really enjoy having. One of the things that our patrons really like in our Slack is that now we've got heads of several different Quakes players. We've got heads of QE writers. We've got Quakes logos, QE logos, all kinds of interesting emoticons, and we can use that when people are chatting in the Slack, and they have a lot of fun with that. We can give that type of thing to you on YouTube as well. One of the many benefits that we can get to improve your experience if we get to 1,000 subscribers. So please like and subscribe, because it's only going to be better for all of us in terms of the things that we can provide you on this show. Thanks to Robert Jonas for joining us tonight, Alex Morgan. Also, Aaron Morgan was our sideline photographer tonight. I'm sure he's captured some great photos of the match that we will be sharing both with patrons and a special gallery, as well as a few over the Quakes Epicenter Twitter account. So pay attention for that content coming your way as well. For Alex, for Robert, I'm Jamon Moore. Have a good night, everybody. We will talk to you again on Saturday night. Thank you.